Hello and welcome to the 63rd Everybody Dice podcast, where we're going to be talking about what we've been playing recently and a couple of other news stories as well. I am Steve, and today I am joined by
Ian.
And
It's Darryl. I'm here.
hey,
I'm underneath. Oh no, I'm
I don't.
underneath. Oh,
The perspective is
yeah,
so.
it's like
it's so
I,
confusing.
I'm now
That
used
right?
to pointing the other way to where I want to point. So
So am I
yeah.
pointing the wrong way?
So you're currently pointing one finger at me and one at Ian.
That's right.
So
That's what I
So if
want.
I go, hang on. Surely,
so
No,
if I
no, don't do it. Don't do it. Oh God. Oh God. I should have put a hand coming from the top.
have you still got the mannequin?
Have we still got the man? Oh right. Oh yeah.
Let's not discuss what happened to the mannequin.
Is
What
this?
happened to the mannequin?
It's had an eventful life and it had to get put down, unfortunately.
No, who killed the mannequin?
I'm not sure, but I came back to find most of it missing.
Oh.
I wanted its head. That's all I wanted. I just wanted its head. I had no other plans. I just needed the head. But
There used to be two.
there was weirdly one of them just completely disappeared, and then the other one went on road trips with like that time we took it to
Yeah.
someone's house, and then someone from work took it for like music videos. So that got quite a lot of yeah. It's done around. It did a round around Helen's parents' house, dressed up wearing bras and stuff to scare the dad. It's been everywhere. This thing. Yeah.
Cool.
Unfortunately, it's not survived.
So now that we've both talked about things that no one has any frame of reference to, and and we've spent a great deal pointing at one another, which I'm sure will be great for the podcast listeners that don't see everything that's happened on screen. But anyway,
But if they've got good enough headsets, they should be able to hear the air quality as we're pushing through the air of our hands, like that chopping motion.
Yeah, hang on.
We oh
that's
oh.
that's
hear that?
entirely it. Our incompetence is completely on you guys that are listening. That's
It's
the message
ASMR.
we're sending here.
By supporting us, you condone this.
Oh dear. So anyway, how are you guys? Before we start things off, everything been good?
No, but yeah, sure.
Yeah, we've kind of like obviously we've made no secret that we record this. We record this prior to the release day, and we've kind of had flood today.
Ah.
Like,
I've just had a harrowing 2 weeks, and the floods have tipped it off.
yeah, it's like
Euro loss.
yeah, it does turn out that football is not coming home.
Can I do a quick thing about football?
Sure.
It's going to be very, very brief. The concept of football coming home is the concept of national pride returning to the country in regards to its national football team. In that case, football came home.
That's very nice to
And
say.
physically, the trophy was in the country and was therefore home.
Oh dear. There are a lot of people that will disagree with you, but that's a very nice thought to
It's
have.
great because, as a human being, I don't care what people think.
Yeah.
I'm
that's
going
fine.
to throw my one and only comment on this subject because as I am not a participating sportsman, as one can tell.
I mean, none of us are participating sportsmen, but
Ian was for a while. Ian used to dabble, didn't you? I believe you were quite fond
Of what? Sorry.
like football and stuff. You were quite into sports, but
I played a fair amount of football when I was younger.
yeah.
Yeah.
So
When I wasn't this fat, yeah.
wow, that took a dark tone. Right, my only one concept on it is the fact that it once again shows the delightfulness of British people. The amount of Twitter comments, the Instagram comments, the stuff I've seen, I have never. So someone from work was telling me that someone shot a laser pen into someone's eye on an opposing team. Like that is absolute madness.
It's not even the worst thing that happened. So.
I know, but it's just crazy. But yeah, so I can see why. Yeah.
honestly, I think I
loved around the world.
I've got to admit, I think I would enjoy football a hell of a lot more if it wasn't for the culture that surrounds it. Like, it's a small
I think
minority that really spoils it for like the
I think that's
entire
fair,
image
yeah.
of the game. You know, like, the actual game itself is great. I can watch it all day long, kind of thing. But yeah, a lot of the antics and stuff like that kind of put me off. A lot of the crowd reactions and stuff like that are kind of a bit questionable, and yeah, I just
Yeah,
can't
I
get
think
behind
that's the
that.
problem.
I find. Anyway, shall we move away from that and talk about some board games?
Yes. Game.
Shall we start off with some news?
I love
So,
the news.
Can I interrupt very, very quickly?
We
Again.
interrupt this broadcast.
Something I forgot to tell you, but there's new art released. I'm taking the advantage of you, Steve, and I'm going first. There's new Warhammer 40k Orcs, Beast Boys, and you can look them up on the Warhammer community page, and that's all we really need to say. I'll give Steve a picture. He can put it up at one point. If he
They
feels
are
like it, or a link,
incredible.
whatever. They're really, really cool pictures, and I've been teasing them with Darryl like for the last few days.
It's been upsetting me. I'm not gonna lie.
They're redoing Kill Team as well to make it better, and adding Death Corps of Krieg.
Oh, okay.
I'm just going to do it really quickly because I didn't tell Steve I was going to do it because I forgot. So it's out of the way. And Steve can go back to the regular scheduled programming.
Okay, so first off, we have yet more news on the UK Game Expo that is happening this year. Now, they've gotten in a little bit of hot water, and at the time of, we've got stuff all over Ian now.
Oh, no! Sorry. What an advert!
Oh, dear. Well, there's the pictures anyway. I'm sure it's been on screen already, but there we go. Anyway, the UK Game Expo, yeah, they've gotten in a bit of hot water with their audience recently. It must be noted that things have changed at this point. If you actually go onto the UK Game Expo today, the notice that's on there is very different from the one that was on there a couple of days ago. In fact, it's probably going to change again by the time this podcast comes out. So, yay, we're completely up to date here. So, I've still got what was written down originally, or at least a section of it, from where it was released before. There was stuff on there which I'm paraphrasing a bit, where they were talking about their mask policy was originally going to be that it's your choice to wear a mask and no one should be saying anything about anyone's other choices in the event. They kind of like tried to, funnily enough, mask it with the idea of it being an all-inclusive thing of not having to wear a mask and not criticizing one another for whether they choose to or not. And no one was going to ask people to wear a mask if they weren't wearing one and stuff like that. So it's kind of like if you weren't comfortable with people or being in close quarters with people that weren't wearing a mask, you were kind of stuck at that point. But what was kind of irking people was this bit here, and I'll read this word for word. What was originally posted on the 6th of July was that the rules for attending a mass event are set by Public Health England. As we've already said, we will abide by the rules that they set. If confirmed on the 12th of the 7th, 2021, there will be no restrictions placed on events by Public Health England. This includes entry requirements, face masks, numbers attending, social distancing. UK Game Expo will not enforce any requirements that are not legally required, as we do not believe that will be practical on the day. However, UK Game Expo and the NEC will do the following, as it seems to be common sense, and this is the bit which really irked people. We would request that, if possible, you do a lateral flow test before coming to the venue. We have no way of checking this test, but please perform the test for your own peace of mind and to safeguard everyone. You can kind of see the problem there, in that people could just choose not to and no one was going to question anything. It's since changed. Like I said, today they announced now that you do have to prove, at least on the first day, that you've taken a lateral flow test and that it has come back negative. And also, all of the face mask stuff about having the choice to wear them or not is now gone from it. In fact, now if you look on the web page as it is right now, it says you must bring a face mask to the UK Game Expo unless you have medical exemptions. You must wear a face mask inside the UK Games Expo indoor spaces unless you have medical exemptions. So things have very much changed within the last week. I imagine it has something to do with the fact that I think there were probably people saying, well, I'm just going to ask for a refund on my ticket then. I mean, what do you guys make of all this? Because this seems like they've been forced to backtrack, if you ask me.
I think initially it was a worrying lack of commitment to what was supposed to be a national cause and preventing stuff from going wrong.
Mm-hmm.
It was sort of like, it's on you to be as safe as you want, which isn't, it's a very dangerously arrogant way to police any. It's just basically that's on you. If anything goes wrong, you chose to do it, which it's sort of their responsibility to keep everyone safe within their venue in theory. So
I think the problem is that
I think the fact they changed it is good, but I don't think they've changed it for the right reasons.
Yeah, I think there's something to be said that, like you were explaining, the approach they had there was you could go there, be perfectly safe, but because there are probably going to be a large number of people that aren't abiding by the various COVID restrictions and stuff like that aren't in place anymore, but are kind of sensible to follow, at least for the time being, especially a big crowded event like this. It's worrying for people when it is a case of, okay, I can do all those things, but they don't have to, and I could catch it from them. It's kind of one of those things like a mask only reduces the effect of the chances of being able to catch anything. I think they have said somewhere on there that if you can prove you're double vaccinated, you don't have to prove that you've taken the lateral flow test, which again is still
Seems a bit, yeah.
Because you can still catch it and spread it to other people, even if
Yeah.
you are fully
Yeah,
vaccinated.
you could be
So
the thing. You could be going around touching everything and sort of not caring because you're protected, kind of thing. But it's the other people that might not necessarily.
just to clarify what I said there for the purposes of this, it says that in regards to taking a lateral flow test, it says that alternatively, we would accept evidence of full vaccination as shown on the NHS app or a print off. So you can do that as an alternative to proving that you aren't testing positive right now. So,
Yeah.
I think, though, the majority of people that are getting vaccinated are at least a bit aware of keeping everyone else safe and stuff like that.
Yeah, I imagine most people that want to go to these things are kind of. I know I spoke to quite a lot of people that have predominantly only got the vaccination just because they want to get on with things. It's not necessarily because they want it, if that makes sense. They just because they need it for other stuff, which is a weird way of thinking about it, but at least it's getting done.
Yeah. I mean,
good.
This is the first event that I've heard of. I'll state this is the first event I've heard of. This isn't necessarily the first event that's out there that's done this, but it's the first time I've heard of an event saying we don't need proof of vaccination or a negative on a lateral flow test, like they said originally. This is the first event that I'm aware of that has said, yeah, it's fine, just come in, do it for your own safeguard, but
Yeah.
it was a very bold approach for them to say that.
I think when the effectiveness of masks is supposed to be you're stopping other people from getting what you've got, potentially.
Yeah.
As much as it does protect you a little bit, it's more to protect those around you. To tell people that, yeah, you can do it if you want to protect yourself, maybe, but that's not how it works.
Yeah.
It's just, I found it very annoying. It annoyed me.
Yeah. I mean, let's let's at least end this by saying that by changing their regulations, it is a positive step. Um, it's a shame they had to go through that first kind of press release where everyone wasn't. Everyone was a bit. I'm not sure about this. You know, They should have had the foresight to know that there would be a large group of people that would not be happy with that at all. But yeah,
it does worry me about their commitment to the safety if they're forced to change it because people are cancelling tickets, not because
that's not
they
the
actually felt
official
right.
reason, I don't think. But there certainly was a
but, like-
voice on Twitter that was kind of like going, "Well, I ain't going then," you know.
Yeah, the thing is, if that's what's caused their change, I guess some of it's positive because they've listened to the fans. But I mean, I do think that perhaps they should have looked at being better in the first place.
Yeah. Either
Live
way,
and learn, I guess.
yeah, definitely. Either way, though, there's going to be an update again tomorrow on their rules and stuff like that. So by the time this podcast comes out, it will have changed again. Just to mention that just before we move on to another story. Is there anything else you guys want to say about that before we move on to our next thing?
No,
No?
I think we've kind of yeah.
Cool. Okay. So, next up, Unmatched. They've fully announced what's going to be included in Volume 2. We were aware of one of them before. Yenneger was previously announced, I believe.
Yeah.
And nothing else in the set was. We kind of got a look at a couple of her cards and stuff. Funnily enough, I don't know even if I'm saying it right, but Yenneger was like an African queen, I think, like a warrior queen.
Yeah,
I don't
it
know
seems
too
like
much about her.
from
to be
what
honest.
everyone was kind of saying, yeah, it seemed like she was kind of. I'm not. It's going to sound really ignorant. I haven't actually researched it whether or not she was a genuine character or like a kind of more like a written type character. You know, like a sort
mythical
of
kind of
based on a
character.
real thing. Yeah,
Because the rest of these
it's
characters
difficult
are
with these,
definitely
isn't
all
it?
mythical. So
Yeah, so I'm not 100% sure because obviously it was similar to the first one, had a lot of mythical stuff really, or literary.
yeah, but yeah, we've now found out the full roster for Volume 2. Also announced was Achilles of Greek legend. The one I'm really excited about, Sun Wukong, who, if you're kind of like familiar with Sayuki, The Journey to the West, and also he's inspired, like, Sun Wukong has been like an inspirational character for a lot of things in fiction, Goku from Dragon Ball Z is pretty much based on Sun Wukong, especially if you see like the first season of Dragon Ball, and Goku's going around on the his little Nimbus cloud and has the little
The
extendy
Nimbus,
stick. That's all from the Sun Wukong mythos. And of course, if you're familiar with the old 80s TV series Monkey,
Yeah. Oh yeah.
you'll
I was
be
gonna say,
very
it
much
seems
aware
so.
of him
Yeah.
as well. That was oh god, what was his name? Bill from Kill Bill. Forgot his name now.
David Carradine.
David Carradine. I think it was him, wasn't it?
Yeah, David Carradine. I know he was in it. I never really used to watch it. I know it was a big thing, but everyone used to go on about it. Yeah. I believe. Yeah. That does ring a bell in a way. Do you know what I'm most interested in is the Bloody Mary character.
Yes, I was coming on to that in a
The
sec.
whole like kind of mirror world character. I feel like it's going to be a very similar concept to the Invisible Man, like kind of appearing back on the map and stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think out of all of them, weirdly, I'm most interested in her.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, that was the other one that kind of caught my eye when I saw it, because the other three are kind of like deeply steeped in kind of like cultural
Yeah.
kind of like mythos and stuff like that. But Bloody Mary, I think, is a far newer kind of horror character. I think probably only came from the Victorian times. You would have thought.
Yeah, I read something a second ago. It wasn't on this, but it was saying something along the lines of it was based on Mary Scott or something like Bloody Mary Scott or something.
It's Mary Queen of Scots, isn't it?
Yeah, but I didn't read it all. I only saw a little bit of it, so I don't know.
Yeah.
I assumed it's Queen Mary.
But either way, I think it's probably the most recent out of all of those, I would say.
It's literally because she burnt people, right? She burnt Protestants.
Yeah, that's right. Because she had a Spanish husband or something, didn't she? That was Catholic, and it kind of stoked the fire as such.
Really?
Further.
Is it Mary? I don't think it is Mary Queen of Scots. I think it's Mary Tudor. Oh, no.
It was Queen Elizabeth's
Is that the
sister,
same
wasn't
person?
it?
Yeah, it's the same person.
Yeah, I think so.
Is it?
I
I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
I'm not sure, but either way, you can kind of see, like Achilles is going to be your out and out fighter, I imagine. In this sense, probably I would say he's the one that's most likely to be the King Arthur of this set.
Yeah.
I would imagine.
So what's really interesting, and a lot of people have been kind of a bit vocal, I guess you could say. He has obviously Achilles' heel as a card.
Yeah.
And it was something really like awful. Like if you lose, you lose like hard in the combat. I can't remember where I saw it, but it was incredible. Yeah, people were saying if it's what was it? I don't know if I'm able to find it, but yeah, it looked really interesting. They've added it as a kind of like
I do like
as a
that
negative to the player.
It's like a very powerful character with a huge side effects of negativity to balance out their power. It's like how Anakin works in Legion.
But I mean,
Right, okay, yeah.
Like Achilles' role in Greek mythology was pretty much as an unbeatable fighter that had one weakness, right? So it would kind of make sense for him to be a character that will just absolutely destroy people close combat, but have that thing that comes up every now and again that just hurts him really badly.
Yeah,
So
I'll see if I can find it. I don't know. It was a really interesting card. Like, I found it made sense, but I think a lot of people were saying, again, it's those people that play more as the kind of ones that can guess cards and stuff like that. So I think it might be a bit more of a issue for them.
But
yeah,
I imagine,
I'll see if I find it.
as you said earlier, I imagine Bloody Mary is going to play fairly similar to the Invisible Man, someone who can pop up in different parts of the map and can very much play the deck milling kind of role of keep
I
away,
imagine so.
get people to waste their cards on boosting movement and stuff like that, and just kind of popping in and out and stuff. Whereas I imagine Sun Wukong is going to be more a quick move and attack from distance kind of character. I imagine out of all of these new ones, that's kind of the way I see this going, to be honest.
Yeah, I could. Yeah, I mean, the one. Yeah, I think the only one that I wonder if it's going to be they're going to have like their gimmicks as per usual. But like you say, I wonder if obviously like Achilles will be more the King Arthur one. Probably the warrior princess lady will be obviously like Medusa style. But I'm just curious what the other two kind of roll into, whether they play as a bit more closer to Sinbad or a bit more closer to Alice with like their kind of tricks and stuff.
I don't think either of them are going to quite match up with those two. I don't think. I think the other two are going to be the trickier characters. Like we were saying, I think Bloody Mary's going to be very similar to the Invisible Man, and Sun Wukong, if they're really going to push this, I imagine he'll have some cards that will allow him to move a great distance very quickly. And the extending pole thing, I think, will act like a ranged kind of thing, I imagine, for him.
So he has a clone ability with the three
Makes
little
sense. Yep.
dudes. So I've been seeing that. Apparently, when he's near others, a bit like the Raptors, he gains boosts.
Oh, okay.
There's a lot with the more he has of them, the better it is.
So he's really nice probably going to be quite a weak character because, like we've seen in the previous Unmatched sets, a lot of the characters that rely on sidekicks and having them in numbers tend to be quite easy to deal with as the match goes on. You start defensive, get rid of a couple of the sidekicks, and then the actual character themselves is a lot weaker. A lot of their cards are far less effective at that point. So, unfortunately, I can see Sun Wukong being a bit of a weaker character, which is a bit of a shame, but he might have some neat tricks there.
So you've got these are some of the like more tricky ones. So Achilles heel, if you lost the combat, your opponent gains an action. So the best, it's quite a high defense. It's a 4 defense, but I like the idea that essentially it means you could get wrecked. Some Wukong recovers 1 health for each clone on the board. My God. And then the mirror one, oh, Jesus. It looks like she gets third to be able to do 3 actions for stuff.
Oh wow. Okay.
Yeah, so she got during the combat, if your opponent discards 1 random card art and its boost value to the card's effect, and after combat, if this is your 3rd action, draw 1 card. So I'm not sure if she might have like some way of doing 3, but loving the artwork.
Yeah.
But yeah,
as usual.
there's a lot.
Yep. Okay. Shall we move on? Because Restoration Games, they've announced a whole bunch of stuff recently, and the next thing we'll cover real quickly is Thunder Road Vendetta, which is restoration of the old Milton Bradley game Thunder Road, which is kind of like a Mad Max kind of death race kind of thing, kind of similar to Speed Freaks, the Games Workshop game. Looks very cool. They've been doing this recently, like Dark Tower is one that's still we're waiting to see release of reissue of that, and they've already done it with Fireball Island, which went down really, really well. It is worth saying that a lot of these, like for example Fireball Island, they did make some updates to the game, but it very much still feels more like a toyish kind of game, I suppose. I imagine Thunder Road Vendetta is going to be much the same way as well. They have said that there's going to be a number of things they're going to add to the game. Things like mud, ramps, mines, obstacles, fire, a giant bunker in the middle of the road, and more. Because it's going to feature double-sided tiles. So, yeah, this kind of like just looks like it's going to be just a manic fun kind of race across the board whilst trying to damage everyone else in the race, I think.
I think I was really excited about it, and you were like, "It's more of like a kids' game." And I saw an old '80s video of it, and I still want to get it.
Yeah,
it looks, yeah, like you say, it looks like it could just be absolutely chaotic. Just a kind of a mixture of, was it Speed Freaks, and what was that game we played with the worms? They're like, we had to pick up their eggs and stuff. Do you know what I mean?
Tremors.
Oh yeah, Terror Below.
Yeah, that
That's
one.
like
Yeah,
Tremors,
I imagine
isn't
it to be
it?
something like that, where we're all kind of just shooting around the board. Like, yeah, that was so good fun. Yeah, like the Tremors. Yeah, that was good.
Yeah.
Hopefully.
But yeah, I mean, obviously it was quite a while back now, Fury Road, probably like, what, 6-7 years ago, so it probably hasn't capitalised
Yeah,
on
jeez.
that. Is there another Mad Max film coming or something, or
Yeah,
something that this is going
it
to
was supposed
capitalise
to
on?
be. It was supposed to be like not that long ago, but it's a prequel, I think, with Charlie Theron's character, but without her. They've got a different person to play now.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't know if Tom Hardy's still in it, because I really enjoyed that film. I thought it was really good.
I
that
thought
it
it
was
was
They
new.
good,
didn't
yeah.
get along, did they?
Did they not?
Oh
No,
right.
Tom Hardy and whatever her face is called. Apparently, they
Oh,
really,
wow.
really hated each other.
Oh wow.
That might explain it then. That might explain it.
But yeah,
Yeah.
I heard that she was doing her own thing based off the back. Of it.
Yeah, she was, but then last thing I saw, I mean, this was ages ago. Last thing I saw was they recast her as a slightly younger lady to play her, I think. Whether or not it'll be any good, but I mean, that I wasn't expecting much of this one. To be honest with you, it was absolutely amazing. So,
Yeah.
hopefully it'll be good, but we'll see. But yeah, I am looking forward to this.
It will be interesting to see because me and Ian have played Speed Freaks. Have you played it at all, Darryl?
No, I don't think I did. I never actually got a chance to play it. Weirdly.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see
I
how
don't
this
think
does
so.
stack up against that, to be honest with you. But anyway, yeah, let's...
I really hope that there's a rule for bringing in your own toys. So like getting loads of Hot Wheels cars and just having them on the field as like junked up cars and stuff. That'd be good.
What is the game that does that? Because we still haven't played that.
Oh,
Oh.
Gasland.
Yeah,
Gasland.
yeah.
I
Gaslands
really
Refueled or
wanted to
something,
play that
yeah.
because Did you ever get round to building your? Was it you, Stephen, that was going to build like weird building trucks or something with like dumpers on them and stuff?
Yeah, because I'm using one of the trucks now for my little game that I'm designing.
Oh, okay.
So I've still got the trucks,
Amazing.
but
Yeah.
they've been repurposed for the time being.
Nice.
Occasionally, I end up perusing our selection of die-cast trucks and stuff, and I'm like, "Oh, I could make you look violent, stick spikes to you and stuff."
I think I ended up buying a taco truck. With the intention of
you
trying
did
to like.
say you were going to.
I think I tried. It's so hard. I was trying to take it apart and take out the little figures and put little Gretchens in, but I never got around to doing it.
Yeah. Okay, let's move on now. The last thing that Restoration Games announced this time around was a reissue of Key to the Kingdom. I spoke about this recently on a podcast when we were talking about like childhood games and stuff like that. And Key to the Kingdom was the game that I brought up. The art style for this is very different, very bright colours. Compared to like it was almost old kind of like D&D style artwork that was on the old Waddingtons game that I had of this. If they're planning to release this, they need to change this game up big time. It's already confirmed that they're going to have the centerpiece of the game, which was the whirlpool in the middle of the board, and when someone jumps into the whirlpool, the board kind of opens up and the map changes that you go through. But I mean, this was a roll to move game where you would roll dice, you move, you land on a square, and something would happen to you based on what square you'd landed on. Horrible mechanic, absolutely terrible, and will not even stand up in toy form today, I would say. I mean, I don't know what they're doing. I think they've already said that it's going to feature. I'll read this here. This is courtesy of BoardGameQuest.com. The new version of Key to the Kingdom features the classic hole in the board mechanism to hop through portals and explore the Demon King's domain. This new version gives players greater control over the whims of the dice. You'll use your collection of items to tweak your rolls, but make sure you have the right item ready when you go on an adventure to give you an easier path through. So yeah, in the old game you did used to gain like little cards and equipment that, to be honest, they were more like, if you land on the space with a dragon, if you use this item you can move past it, or something like that, like really horrible basic stuff like that. But it looks like they're at least making this so that you can manipulate your dice rolls. I'm gonna hold my reservations about this one. I really want to see what they do with it, because the old system of it really doesn't work. Whether they come up with a really good system of being able to manipulate your dice rolls or not remains to be seen. That's pretty much going to be the deciding factor for me on this one, I think. But yeah, it certainly looks very different tone-wise, I would say. Hello, Darryl. You have something to say.
Did you read the bottom of that thing where they're saying about some other stuff that's mentioned by Restoration Games? I won't go through it all, but my favourite part is Crossbow and Catapults, a 1983 game, will have a new edition coming to Kickstarter. I distinctly remember us talking about this a long time ago. I just quickly refreshed myself by looking at the pictures. I genuinely would be interested in this. I don't think it was ever a game I came across, but I really like the look of it.
This was the one where you actually used to like place catapults and you had crossbows and you actually fired it at your opponent on the other side, right? Yeah, I remember the game from
Like,
had a little fort.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It looks great. I'd love a reissue of that.
I mean, the thing we have to bear in mind though is a lot of these are more toyish, I think.
Yeah, I was going to say it's less of a board game, more of like a kid's toy, isn't it?
Yeah.
How dare you! I never got to experience these things.
That's not a diss. It's not a diss at all. I've got loads of toys. It's just saying. That's how I would describe it.
It's very cool.
Either way, Restoration Games have got a hell of a lot on their plate at the moment, so
it's crazy, absolutely crazy.
Yeah. Anyway, That's all the news that I've got for this week. Shall we move on to some what we've been playing?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, so first off, me and Darryl finally got to play Unmatched Cobble and Fog. We've been waiting for this for ages. Just so long we've heard
It was so
about how
upsetting.
this is the best set of Unmatched and just have not been able to get hold of it at all for such a long time. But hey, Yellow
It finally
now,
turned up.
well, Yellow are reprinting this one for
Yeah.
European audiences now, so it should be far easier to be able to purchase in the UK now and across Europe, in fact. Man, I love this set. I thought it was really, really good.
Yeah, I was saying to Steve, the moment I opened it, the manual itself, it got me with the manual because I've got it with me. The manual had like a kind of oldie worldy advert for like posters, if you will, for like Victorian times of the characters in it. So like it was Dr. Acula's clinic or whatever. I really loved that. Yeah, it was really, really cool. There was one to do with the Invisible Man. There was another one to do with Sherlock Holmes, like a flyer for him. I love the fact that they've kind of even it's just like it's the same instructions. They've got a few other little bits like as in the secret passages and stuff like that, but there's nothing new. But I just love the fact that they've invested time in putting these little adverts in.
Do you know what? I was trying to think where I've heard the Dr. Acula thing before, and it's a Scrubs reference.
Is that?
I think it's been on several things. I swear it's a Simpsons joke as well.
Is it? I know at one point
swear
there's
it
a
is.
Scrubs reference where he has his own fanfic that he thinks up of being Dr. Acula, and he's like a doctor that sucks people's blood.
Yeah, I've definitely seen it in a few places. Like, you guys carry on.
But yeah, it was a great game. We sort of played sort of two games. We sort of swapped characters around a little bit. I played initially as one of the ones that's supposed to be one of the weakest set. I played as Jekyll and Hyde, just because I was curious as to like how the concept works with him. He does have like a really weird system of every time you turn into Hyde, you lose health from using your movements, which is
So
kind
you
of
kind
weird.
of
It does
have to
keep you
move
very...
as Mr. Hyde, as Doctor
Yeah.
Jekyll, and you've got to then attack as Mr. Hyde.
There's a lot of cards that transfer you back to one or the other, and there's a lot more. If you are Hyde, you get such and such. If you're Jekyll, you get such and such. And there were some really interesting plays, and I think I was just trying to really kind of see. I wouldn't say necessarily it was I mean, not me personally. I didn't think it was the weakest one. I could see why people probably find it a bit annoying, but I think it has a level of fun to it. The fact that you've got to kind of concentrate on not dying with just by moving.
I've got to admit, I think out of all the characters that I saw on there, I think I did agree with the masses that Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde probably is the weakest character in the set. So in our game, I've where you were playing that, I was playing as the Invisible Man, and
Yeah.
essentially I just took advantage of the fact that the Invisible Man could just pretty much teleport across the map all the time. So it's just a simple case of I just bided my time and just always waited until Darryl was right next to me, forced him to use boost cards in order to boost his movement, so he was milling through his deck and stuff. And every time he got near me, I just teleported to the other side of the map, and every so often I'd get a little jab in or something like that. I honestly think if I had played the Invisible Man against any of the other characters on there, you would have beaten me, because it was close by the end of it. But
Yeah, I think it was like there wasn't that lot between us, was it? I think we were like nearly 6 or 4, between 6 and 4 or something like that. One of us was, I think.
The interesting thing, though, is that the Invisible Man with his set, he doesn't have any of the standard cards that the other characters have. So,
Do you not have the? Is it a feint? The ones that cancel
yeah,
out the.
he doesn't have any feint cards in his deck. He also doesn't have any of the oh crap. There's a couple where like if you lose a combat, you get to move a number of spaces or something like that as well.
Oh
I think that's a
yeah,
fairly standard card for most decks.
yeah, like skirmish or something like that. I think it is or something.
But in its place, the Invisible Man has a couple of nasty tricks that actually replaces those cards instead. So there were a lot of cards like the Invisible Man can just remove his piece from the board and it doesn't appear back on the board again until the next turn. And you can place him anywhere on the board. So it pretty much can completely throw off someone's game plan by doing that. It's a very disruptive deck, but it doesn't disrupt the opponent's deck. It more just disrupts their plans, kind of thing that they could have moving across the board. He was okay as a character. I think our second game that we played, we probably used the two best characters in the set. I think.
Yeah.
Um,
Dracula and Sherlock Holmes, the match of the ages.
so it wasn't even close. Like Sherlock Holmes just
No.
absolutely wiped the floor with Dracula, but
It just
I
destroyed
think
me.
I think it's more that, and I've heard this. So apparently there are 3 characters that are banned from tournament play, or at least banned in most tournaments, and it's Medusa, who I think is generally regarded as the strongest character in Unmatched. Bigfoot, who I honestly don't quite get. I haven't quite figured out how to play as him, but I imagine there must be a reason as to why he's banned. And then the other one is Sherlock Holmes, because my God, Sherlock Holmes is ridiculous. He can just. He's got all these things where he can do things like look at the cards that are in another player's hand, and then he has a load of things where he can call out a card, and if he calls a certain number, he can completely cancel another player's attack and stuff like that. He can just. He can force the other player just to completely waste their cards, and it's really unfair. And yeah, I can see why he's banned in tournaments, man. Like, I was able to pick up how to play his deck relatively quickly, and Dracula just had no chance against him.
One of the things we were saying that I found really odd is the concept of how the designers set the health levels.
We
So
talked
I
about this
found
when
that-
we were saying about the Marvel characters, weren't we?
Yeah, so like Dracula, as far as I'm concerned, is an immortal being, other than obviously the ways he can be killed. But so I would have imagined him to have a higher. Well, no, I mean
Immortal,
without like,
except the ways you can kill him.
well, like obviously stake through the heart, decapitation, burn, all that kind of stuff. But like realistically, I would imagine him to have quite a healthy constitution. So I'd imagine he would be quite a higher tier for health. But it turns out Sherlock Holmes was way more beefier when it turns to health. I think you were. Did you have 16 and I only had like something stupid, or did you?
Yeah, so
you
I
have
had 16
18 or-
health, and Dracula
Yeah.
had 14.
It was a very weird concept. I found. Other than that, I wasn't at a disadvantage. Like obviously, I was destroyed either way, but I just found it really weird. They chose to kind of have him as a lower level kind of health, but I don't know.
But I definitely feel like with the way Dracula worked, because Dracula had a couple of really, really nasty attacks.
Oh, the one you
which
destroyed straight away.
I was just able to. I think the first card I played allowed me to look at your hand and discard any one of your cards. And I immediately just went, yep, that's a powerful card, bye.
Yeah.
Which
I think it was like the
immediately
only
just-
card that I had at the time, and I didn't get that card again, and like ever. It was
Yeah.
something stupid. Like, didn't it stack up? I could have done like serious amounts of damage to you.
I think it worked out that you could have done about 9 damage to me or something like that, which when you consider 16 health down,
Yeah.
9 knocked off, that's
a good starting
pretty
point.
brutal. But yeah, so if that had hit, then the game might have been much different. But you see, where we were talking about the how the health was applied to people and stuff like that, I kind of, on one hand, sort of understood it because Dracula had a lot of ways to heal him and stuff like that. But Sherlock Holmes also had ways of healing himself
I
because
know.
his little sidekick
Goddamn
Holmes
Watson.
could, Watson, yeah, had the whole thing of he's Dr. Watson. If he stood next to Sherlock Holmes, he can heal him. So that kind of negates that. I think Dracula had, think, wasn't Dracula's power something like if he starts next to someone, he hits them for 1 health and gains 1 health, or something like that. So if he's
Yeah, something
constantly
like that.
starting next to someone, he's just constantly getting his health back all the time. So
And his sisters could, his brides could do the same thing. That would help him, but they ended up just dying off one by one really quickly.
in fairness, you let me kill them off one by one. I was really surprised
Yeah,
that a lot of the
true.
time I would target the sisters, and you would say, "Yeah, I'm just not going to defend against that." And I was thinking, "Okay, this is kind of like
I think,
limiting your options pretty quickly."
In
But
my mind, I assumed that the cards were going to come out and it was going to be bring them all back.
you
And
had
in
like
fact, I
things
think
which allowed you to bring one back at a time.
yeah,
I
one,
think. Yeah.
not the whole lot. And I was like, oh, never mind.
But either
Never mind.
way, I felt like from the 2 decks that we were playing as in that second game, I feel like either one of them will beat Invisible Man or Dr. Jekyll 9 times out of 10, I think. I feel like our second game we were playing with the 2 strongest characters in that one. Anyway, shall we move on? I think. The last thing we'll talk about real quick is the maps, because they introduced secret passages as well, which were kind of cool to deal with, because the secret passages, for the most part, connect up the corners, but then you also had one in the center of the board as well, which was quite cool.
Yeah, it was like I guess it was the study that led to the garden or whatever. That was really good fun because it meant that we could sort of chase each other through different avenues. But it was yeah, again. It
I
was
will
quite
also
funny.
say that the Invisible Man on that map, I imagine, would be a little neutered. I imagine, because it's a map
Yeah.
that allows quick movement and stuff like that, which kind of negates the Invisible Man's ability a little bit. But yeah. Anyway, let's move on, because we did have a quick game of Star Realms. Now, we talked about Hero Realms a couple of episodes ago. I played a game with Darryl of regular Star Realms, and I was just quite interested to really hear about what you make of it, because I feel like I've already said my piece on this. I've got a couple of things I could say about the differences between Star Realms and Hero Realms, but
Initially daunting, purely based on the fact that I think it's because, oddly, for being such a small game, there is a lot to it.
I don't know. I found it quite, like, if you know what a deck building game is, I found it really easy. Like,
I think it was more the fact that it was trying to learn the cost of sort of either scrapping something, keeping it, or like trying to kind of balance the different colors that would give you different bonuses and stuff. I think that was the thing that I initially kind of didn't really grasp to start off with, because I didn't really see the point of buying the cheaper ships. I was always trying to buy more stuff, but then what I was neglecting was attacking you. So I was trying to build up currency rather than kind of actually chip away at your health, which is what you were doing. You were slowly chipping away at my health, and then when it came to the crunch, you had like a really good collection of sort of attack ships, for instance.
yeah.
And then it was the sort of the double level of the cards. So it was like cards plus another color of their card lets you do the second action or whatever, and then it's sort of like, so you were doing serious amounts of damage. And I think it was kind of a bit too late for me to recover at that point, because I'd sort of compensated only by getting stuff that realistically at the time was just giving me money. But I think I definitely would have had another. I would like to have had another go at it, because it was a very. It was a nice, like, again, for a small game, it was nice the amount of stuff you had to it, the level of strategy, the content, even though it was just about slightly bigger than a booster pack, maybe.
Yeah, pretty much.
In terms of sort of box level, but
it almost like
it was good.
If you imagine like a pack of playing cards, maybe get a second one, double that up. That's about the size of the box that you've got, and it holds a whole deck building game in it. In terms of the differences between Star Realms and Hero Realms, I think Hero Realms is a little bit easier. For a start, if you want to get Hero Realms, you're going to have a 4-player set right out the box. Star Realms only offers a 2-player experience. But also, Hero Realms is just a little bit easier to get into, because in terms of your starting cards and stuff like that, I believe that there is one card that is worth more currency than the rest of your currency cards. So I think most of your currency hands in your hand all have a 1 gold value to it. There's one card that will I think it was just called a ruby, that will be worth 2 gold. So it just gives you a bit of extra buying power at the beginning of the game in order to perhaps buy a more expensive card at the beginning, or perhaps buy 2 cards in order to basically move the game along quicker. I think you also have one weapon that deals a little bit of extra damage. So there's just a little more in Hero Realms just to help probably new players just get into everything quicker, rather than sometimes having 2 or 3 turns at the beginning of the deck building game where you're just building cards and nothing's really happening. You're just kind of like building a deck to begin with. It just lets you get into the action a little bit quicker, I think. But yeah, that is Star Realms. Next up, like I said, we'll just do that one quickly. Next up, though, we have Crash Octopus, which, Ian, you've played more of this than I have. Tell us a little bit about it.
It is a game where you get little wooden octopus pieces on a board, and you flick a token around the board to represent your ship. You flick things at your ship in order for your ship to pick them up, and you can flick a token around to move your ship. It's like a little Dex game. It's kind of fun. Like it's not. I'm trying to think of the best way to describe it. So you've got like the octopus head in the center and all the tentacles around it, and then there's loads of debris. And in order to pick up debris, you flick the debris at your boat. And your boat is like equally, all the players' boats are just around the edge. If you knock stuff off your boat, you lose it. If you knock stuff off your boat in any other point in the game except flicking it at your boat, you just put it back on. And when you move your boat, you can sort of rearrange it and stuff as well. So it's just there's not as much to it as I'm making it sound like there is. There's a bunch of different types of debris. You flick them at your boats, and it's the first person to finish the boat, or there's a timer which like gauges the amount of octopus attacks there are.
With a cool little crab on it.
With a cool little crab on it.
Yep.
And when that reaches the end, whoever has the most debris wins. And there's like a tier system for how good each different type of debris is. But it's good. It's good fun. Me and the wife played it. We played it about 3 times. First time being like, do I just flick this? Second time being like, okay, I think I understand. And third time being like, okay, we both know what we're doing here.
Yeah.
And she really enjoyed it. I kind of enjoyed it. It's not a bad game, and it's not an unfun game, but it is a very simplistic game. I wouldn't. There's a lot of setup for what is a moderately enjoyable experience, because there's lots of different pieces, and you have to sort of set it up. And I know you said you had difficulties with flicking stuff on the game board because it's not smooth.
So one of the things I wanted to bring up with this was me and you had 2 very different experiences with Crash Octopus. Bear in mind, I've only ghost played it. I haven't actually played it against people yet or anything like that. But I was very much finding that I was knocking over ships way too easily. Like sometimes I would knock something towards a ship, it would just tap it ever so slightly, and the boat would capsize, and you lose everything that was on that ship. You were finding the exact opposite. Where...
Yeah, I mean, I have a fairly good record with Dex games, and I wonder whether that's why, because Laura's not undexterous either. I do wonder whether we're just kind of good at that, and that's what made the game feel kind of simple and easy. But it was both every single time me and Laura played it, we didn't reach the end.
Yeah.
I got every item on my ship before the timer ran out, and it was like about the halfway point.
Yeah.
Again, it might be something with the 2-player game. It might open up a bit when there are 3 players, and you can sort of put things in the way of each other a bit more often. There's certain points in the game where you can move the octopus parts in order to make your opponent's game more difficult. And one of the rules is you drop a dice on top of the head of the octopus, and if it hits your opponent's ship and knocks stuff off, that counts. So you're sort of aiming to drop the dice on the head to bounce off and hit the opposition ship. It's impossible.
Yeah, I was having real difficulty with that.
You can't actually do that. So in the however many times we managed to drop the thing on the head, only one occasion was and the ship hit by the dice after doing that, and it didn't even knock anything off. So it's we found that there are parts of the game that are perhaps redundant, and there are parts of the game that I think it's almost suggested like, if you get to this point and whatever, but I think we found it quite easy.
So my theory with this is I think it's a very particular game depending on exactly what kind of surface you're playing. Because I'm talking about sometimes things would hit the ship very, very lightly and it would still capsize. I mean very, very lightly, as in I was surprised that it was still knocking them over at the time. I'm very much wondering whether this is a surface thing.
Laura flicked something as hard as she could and it hit her boat and it pushed it and everything stayed on. And I was like, that's mental. How is that not all fallen off?
This is why I'm thinking it's very much a surface thing. Like,
I wonder whether on a smooth surface, the boat moves along the surface as it is, like flat.
Yeah.
Maintaining a lot. Like I think Laura knocked off some of her stuff like once or twice, but I didn't end up doing. I think maybe I did it once actually, but I wonder whether it moves the boat rather than the boat catching on what is a rougher surface on your table and knocking it over. So I wonder whether the surface is very important. But we found the act of flicking stuff out our boats very easy, and there was a point in the last game we played where I was one thing off winning.
Yeah.
You can't flick the thing that's closest to you at your boat, but we had two of the same colour really close to each other and really close to my boat. So Laura was just trying to flick them away from me and make it so that colour was the closest one to try and stop me from flicking things at my boat. And it was just a few rounds of us quite easily flicking it into position of exactly what we wanted before waiting for one of the others to make a mistake, basically.
Yeah. I mean, one of the cool rules they have in this game is you can't flick the item that's closest to your boat. You have to flick at least the second furthest away item. That's kind of neat. It stops you from just flicking things that are pretty much right next to your boat. Although I was finding, bear in mind, I will say for the record as well, I played it on two different surfaces, and on a gaming table surface, don't even attempt it. Your items will roll and stuff like that, and this is very much designed as a game where the things you're flicking are meant to glide across the table. I was finding you cannot do it on a gaming table surface. You have to adapt to another surface. I was actually playing second time round on kind of like a wood effect tabletop, and like I said, stuff was just falling over when it was hitting on that kind of surface. But just to get back to the point that I was making, I was finding that you eventually end up with a lot of debris around your ship anyway, like after a few flicks and stuff like that, and you start finding that
if
hitting the second furthest.
Like that.
Yeah, and hitting the second furthest thing, usually the second furthest thing isn't actually that much further away than the closest thing to it, you know. I was definitely finding that quite a lot as well.
Did you play with the island?
I did not, no.
So the last game we played the island, which if there's so when you drop stuff, it's like right next to the octopus's head at the beginning. When you drop the debris, if nothing lands on it, the closest thing ends up washing away on it. And if you are not the closest boat to the island, you can visit it and just pick up whatever's there by flicking your token. So you flick your token from where your boat is. If it hits the island, you just get what's on there. You can place on your boat.
Oh, okay.
If you're the closest boat, you can't do that.
Okay, I see. Cool.
I think as a mechanic that made it more interesting because once you pick something up from there, the next nearest item to the island goes onto the island. Okay. So you're finding that it was if you use the island, it moves around the board a bit more. It stops people doing what they're trying to do. It kind of people tactically moving themselves just further away than the island, so the opposition can't use the island. Yeah, I think that it made the game a lot more thought process to go into what you're doing.
So you probably suggest playing it with the island on future plays.
I think learn the rules without, and then put the island in as soon as you can.
Okay.
We didn't try the pink pirate.
Okay, yeah. I haven't tried that yet either. Like,
I think the process is he goes round and trolls everyone.
Oh, okay.
From what I could tell, I don't. Laura read the rules, not me. I was being lazy. But we didn't put him in, but that's something we'll try next time.
Yeah. Okay. So just to finish this off, what do you think of it? I don't feel like I can really give a conclusive answer to
I
this.
like it, but like, it's never a good sign for a game when someone goes, "Do you want to play Crash Octopus?" And I go, ugh. It's like, yeah, I do, but I don't want to set it up.
Okay, yeah.
Darryl, are you
Ooh,
okay?
I don't know.
We can't hear you.
Sorry about that. I said, is that the main issue for you then? It's not necessarily the gameplay itself, it's more the fact that the setup takes
the
the
game's
fun out of
fun, but it's not long, and it took longer to set up and put away.
it. Okay, so
If we set up the game, played one game, and then put the game away, the setup and put away would take longer than the playing.
so it's funny you say that, because Steve,
But
are you going...
that also might change with multiple players. Like me and Laura have seen 2 people playing it.
Yeah,
I think with loads of people, but then also after every time someone makes an action, the crowd moves one space.
Right,
So I feel like with more players, you get to the end quicker.
Yeah, that's true.
So maybe it's not. Maybe it is just designed to be a quick game.
Yeah. Sorry, was there something else you were going to say then, Darryl, as well?
No, I'm wondering if is the thing that I played randomly dexed or not, because it kind of leads into that a little bit.
Yeah, but we'll cover that later.
Okay, cool.
It's all right. I've got things queued up.
That's fine. That's cool. We'll come back to that, but yeah.
Okay, so next up, me and Darryl played a bit of Arkham Horror, the card game, as well. So we are going to be attending a little event that's happening at Entoyment, where essentially they're doing one of the standalone adventures that you buy separately.
Scenario packs, isn't it?
Yeah, one of the scenario packs, and they're going to have 2 groups attempting them at once, and it's going to be the blob that ate everything, which I've not played at all. I've not even looked at the cards for that one. So that's going to be a really cool experience to be able to go through that blind. So we're getting a little bit of practice in, just to make sure, not necessarily that we're brilliant players on the day, but more that we understand the rules and that we're at least going to be competent and not asking questions every 5 minutes. And things went really well. We actually played Carnevale of Horror. So yeah, we tried out the Carnevale of Horror. So if you're familiar with the Arkham Horror card game, it's kind of like a story-based living card game. So each investigator has their own deck. They draw a number of cards on their turn, they'll have a number of cards in their hand on their turn, and they'll eventually get either used as assets, which will stay as permanent fixtures for the investigator, or they'll be used as event cards, in which case you'll start making a discard pile of your cards in, or you can actually use the symbols that are also placed on cards in order to help you pass other events as well. It's got this horrible thing called a chaos bag, where every single time you need to complete a task, you go into this chaos bag and you draw a token, and that affects your score. So usually there'll be a target number. A bit like if you were playing an RPG or something like that and you were rolling dice, except this has replaced it with a bag. So you will have a stat, and you will draw from the bag, and that number will be added or taken away from your current skill score, and that will determine whether you pass the task or not. The thing is, the chaos bag is horrible because there's only one. Like the setup for this one was we had 1+1 token in the bag, 3 zeros, and then everything else was minuses or critical failures. And there was 1 critical success, which ensures that you get a little bonus instead. But generally, the bag is working against you. That's essentially Arkham Horror, and usually there's an overarching story. If you're playing a campaign, each game you play leads into the next, and you can improve your character by changing your deck and adding cards to it, and sometimes taking cards out. Sometimes you can build your character where you get to replace certain tokens in the chaos bag as well. So over the campaign, your characters get stronger, but also your team can get stronger as well through your own actions as well. So that's really cool that you can do stuff like that. But anyway, Carnevale of Horror, that's what we're here to really talk about. A really interesting scenario where you put all of the locations down at the beginning of the game, And usually a location has a key in the top corner that links it to another location, so you can start moving, say, from room to room and stuff like that in a house quite easily. However, in this one, you randomly arrange all of the locations into a circle, and you can only move from your card to the next card in a clockwise direction. This proves to be quite tricky because every location in Carnevale of Horror has a masked person attached to it. This might be an enemy, it might be an innocent bystander. And essentially, you know that there's a ritual going on throughout this. And your first task is to get 3 innocent bystanders round to kind of like your home card, pretty much. Which means even if you find one, you have to then complete an entire circuit of the locations in order to drop them off back in your home base. That's kind of where you're going to have trouble in this game. It's the idea that you can only move in one direction. So most of the time, if you flip over a masked person and there's an enemy there, it will attack you straight away. And there were a couple of really horrible enemies in this, right?
Oh yes.
Like, you had some that they automatically matched your... There was one which chases you that automatically matches your attack value and your agility value as well. So in other words, you always have to burn cards in order to pass a test against him, and then hope that you draw something from the bag that's not going to be horrible. But you can get around the whole thing of being automatically attacked by a person by spending 2 clues, which you can pick up over the course of the journey. You can spend 2 clues to look at any card, and then you put it back in a face down position. Then you know what's there, and when you come back to it next time, you know you can flip an innocent bystander over. Because there are also consequences for flipping over everyone later in the scenario as well. But I don't really want to give too much away as to what that is, but it kind of like requires a certain degree of careful investigation, whilst also trying to get round as quickly as possible, because you always have this doom tracker that's moving against you and will progress the enemy's agenda as you're trying to accomplish it. It made for quite a unique experience, because...
Yeah, definitely. More so than any of the other stuff I've played on that. There's definitely a level of... I think because the norm is obviously, like you say, you can travel mostly to some connecting locations. They will kind of... You can only go to a certain place from a certain place. But with this, it was that kind of clock face that really... Again, there was a lot of table talk, which was good, because it's quite a sociable game in a way, because we were sort of talking through a plan, and well, I reckon I could help you do this, and you could probably do this, and there was a few lucky moments as well, which was really good. So we drew a few chaos cards that kind of not chaos cards. Oh Jesus, what are they called?
Mythos
what are they
cards.
Called? Mythos cards. That's the one. Chaos cards. Mythos cards that made us swap the innocent or enemy characters around, which a couple of times actually put them quite close to us and were allowing us to kind of go through and sort of search for them and stuff. And it gave us more of a process of elimination, and it allowed us to kind of, I would say all in all, that was probably so far the only game I've played out of that where we've actually come off very lightly. Without giving away any story stuff, we both sort of were quite in good health, good sanity, and we got quite a good resolution, I thought, in the end. And I know you said you played it before and you didn't get that, and it was nice for it to be a second time round to get a sort of different outcome, which is good.
Yeah, I mean, one of the things I definitely found with this one was it was not very combat focused.
No.
It was very different, and also the locations that you were moving across tended to have effects on you as well. So, like, there were some locations where if you moved off, you would lose an action, or you would have to take horror. But also there was a card that said you can spend clues here in order to heal your horror. However, clues almost became like a currency in this event,
Yeah.
which was kind of interesting as well, because there's always only a limited number of clues whenever you play a game of Arkham Horror. Usually, there are sometimes extra ways that you can gain them, but generally, when you flip over a location, it tells you how many clues are going to go onto that location per player. That goes on there, and that's a finite amount of clues that you have in the game. Luckily, there is one location in this game where every single time an investigator lands on it, an extra clue is placed on there. And you kind of need that because, like I said, you have to spend 2 clues in order to look at each of these masked people that are currently moving around. It's based in Venice, basically. But you also need 1 clue in order to actually flip them over afterwards, which kind of represents you going up to them and going, "Hey, how's it going?" kind of thing, and then either trying to stab you in the face or saying, "I need help."
Please help me.
Yeah, pretty much that's how it goes. So you have, like, I would say you still have a very limited amount of clues that you have to play with, and you do have to kind of use them wisely because, like, in a 2-player game, every single time each of those players lands on that location that gives you an extra clue on that location, that's 1 per lap going round. You're not going to get back onto that location again unless you do another lap. And considering that on your turn you can move a maximum of 3 spaces if you don't do anything else and take no other actions, when you consider that, and after, I think it takes 8 Doom tokens before it advances to the next part of the agenda, basically. You think about that, that's not very many movements that you get between you before that agenda's being flipped and it's being progressed. So you do have to be quick. You can't kind of mill around and stuff. And when you consider that you're having to also pick up clues, it's impossible to do this without having to take some turns to pick up clues. But you also are going to have to deal with other enemies that are on the map. Once you've actually flipped someone over as well, you have to take a turn to parley with them in order to get them to attach to you to be able to take them to the safe location. There's a lot of stuff you have to do, and there's not a lot of time to do it in. So you don't really have time to be going round and round and round and accruing all those clue tokens on that one location to get. So you kind of, it's the first game that I've really played of this where you have to manage your clue tokens and really use them when you need to, which is kind of cool. I did enjoy that.
Yeah, it's good.
Yeah. I mean, the last thing I'll talk about real quickly is we also used the pre-made decks as well. So I played as the Mystic character that was really cool. And you played as the detective character.
Yes, Nathaniel Cho.
Yeah.
So one thing that was really I managed to straight out of the bat pretty much get like a really good hand that allowed me to set myself up, because I know what these games can be like, and I know they can be very combat heavy. I know this one wasn't, but the whole thing with Steve was just like, oh, Steve, you do this, reveal it, and I'll come round and beat the hell out of them with my boxing gloves. And because I was a very combat heavy character, I didn't have to do too much, but I had a great card that allowed me to go through the top 6 of my deck every time I defeat a character. And it just so happened that all of my weakness cards happened to keep getting shuffled towards the top. So every time I saw them, I could just sort of basically shuffle them back in. So I never drew a weakness, which was amazing. So it was a really good character for kind of keeping on top of that, even though weirdly very combat heavy, doesn't do a lot else. But it was good fun.
I will say the Mystic character is insane. Like once per turn, when you go to resolve a skill test, the Mystic is allowed to draw 3 tokens out the bag at once and gets to discard 2 of them and keep 1 of them. So you get some form of bag manipulation over that, which is incredibly useful. I mean, Jacqueline Fine, I think is the name of the person on the deck. I would probably recommend this is the character you really want to use if you've been playing a lot of solo adventures, because it does mitigate a lot of that thing. I mean, if you're playing single player and you're failing at your skill tests, you're going nowhere, whereas at least in a multiplayer game, you at least can rely on the other people that you've got to succeed on their tests from time to time to actually advance you. Jacqueline Fine helps just mitigate that a bit and makes it that little bit easier. She's also got a lot of cards where if she predicts certain things as well, she gets to draw extra cards as well into her hand, which is super useful as well. So you can keep a good supply of cards in your hand as well. I would say, yeah, if you're doing a lot of solo play, I would say Jacqueline Fine is probably the one to get. Probably, it's a fine set of cards. Anyway, shall we move on from Arkham Horror?
Yes.
Okay. And next up, we played some more Skull. So really, just interested to hear what Darryl had to think about it, and we'll all chip in with our own thoughts on it as well.
Loved it. It was just super simple. Absolutely loved it. It was nice and quick. Never played these kind of games with Sean, but it was he basically just sat there counting. It's like watching a beautiful mind in play. I guarantee he sees everything like Sherlock Holmes does, like just calculations and algebra on well, he clearly has this, and
There's
he
no
usually
way.
does this.
Sure,
100%.
No.
100%.
Do you know what I think he sees?
What?
I think he looks into like the very eye of madness, and he sees a future where everyone's furious, and all he sees is what card he has to play to do that.
Oh my god, he's just purely there for the chaos.
Yeah,
But it works. It somehow works.
it's not genius, and it's not complete mental collapse. It's somewhere in between.
I at least got to
so
play
good.
a game in this one because we played a couple of games, and I at least finally got to experience playing a game where all I did was play Skulls every single time. That was fun. I quite enjoyed doing that. You've got no chance of you actually you cannot win the game. You can just get everyone else to lose all their beer mats, but I think after a while people will pretty much figure you out. It's almost impossible to win a game of Skull by just playing a Skull on every single turn, I think. But yeah, because you got to get your points from somewhere, and you have to play your flower cards in order to do that.
Points mean prizes.
And you learnt that very valuable lesson as well of never play all of your cards in one turn, because everyone will look at them and they'll find out whether you've still got a Skull or not. So
yeah,
yeah,
that was a valuable lesson. So funny.
Yeah. Anyway, next up, Dead of Winter, flick 'em up. Darryl, this is all on you.
Right. In the ever long quest of trying to get Helen to play board games with me, that she doesn't moan. No, she doesn't moan about the rules being thicker than 3 pages. She doesn't moan about the setup time being longer than the game. Hence where this one came in. So I thought, once before I brought a load of games with me to say, we should play these. This is really simple, much easier than the normal game. You just flick stuff, right? What could ever go wrong there? So I'm setting it up, and she's like, we play one game, which does literally take less time than setting the whole thing up. And I was like, okay, so that's the introductory mission. All we had to do was kill some zombies, get into a bus. All right, no problem. It's fun. We're flicking stuff, blah, 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 whatever. And then it was like, do you want to do the next one where we have to do some collectings? And there's like the little kind of one-on-one with the zombies. It's really cool because it's like cards. No. I was like, no. I was like, okay. I guess I'll just pack this away, shall I? And then that was that. I love this game. I think it's so fun. I love anything with kind of like flicking elements to it. I think it's one of those things where everything's it's almost got like a kind of chibi-esque kind of feel to it. All the little figures are very fun and small, and like the little weapons, like there's nothing better than flicking a baseball bat and it actually hitting a zombie. So yeah, we had a good fun with it. I think I'm gonna make her play it more, but it's in the process of me getting her to finally play Catacombs with me.
Nice. I was going to say, because when you started it off and you were talking about, she wanted a game that didn't have a very long setup time, I was thinking to myself, I've played regular Flick 'em Up, and I know how long that takes to set up. Where is he going with this?
Yeah, so admittedly, I thought, it'd be fine. Just throw some zombies down, put some stuff up, clear the deck. And it was more the fact that it was just one of those things where it took so long, and I forgot how long it took. In my mind, it's because we played a lot more. When I played it before, we played quite a long campaign of it, or like fewer missions of it. So it was, again, the payoff was there because we played maybe like a good few hours, and then actually the pack down was minimal compared to it. But because it was just the initial introductory game, which was only like sort of 3 or 4 rounds, it was relatively easy. You just had to knock over some zombies. There wasn't a lot to it. Which was really good. But yeah, the quest goes on. I might make a separate segment where it's questing with questing with Helen to try and get her to play games. But it was this, to be fair, it was this, which I really enjoy, or it was like Marvel Champions or Arkham Horror, and she said no to both of those. So, you know.
So what I found quite interesting, you said this was cooperative.
Yeah, so oh, you've not played this one, have you?
No. Flick 'em up is like regular Flick 'em up is a team versus team game.
So you can do two versions of this. You can do cooperative, which is like 1 to 10 players, which is really good, or you could split them off into teams. The team aspect, you can then pick like kind of betraying cards, much like the normal Dead of Winter. So you can basically have set agendas that you're trying to basically screw over your team, which as of yet I've not played. I think it'd be chaos with 10 people, but I'd love the idea of it.
Yeah. It's just that's really interesting. It sounds like just because you've got one of these games, there's no reason why you wouldn't buy the second as well. It sounds like
Yeah.
there's enough unique about both versions of Flick 'em Up that it could warrant you having both of them in your collection, which is kind of
So
cool.
the concept I like about it is you're not just playing as two characters as well. You're playing as whatever the scenario requires. So, for instance, it was for about 6 characters, I think. So you just take it in turns playing those characters, or if you were playing a team game, you divide them up. But it basically always gives you 2 modes of play, and I thought that was really nice. I didn't really think about it until you said that, actually, because it's got the replayability of it. Because, like I say, I'd like the idea of at some point playing and potentially giving people hidden roles.
Yeah.
To sort of see how it gets on, considering the real game, if you will, is quite similar to that with the whole someone's out to get you kind of thing.
Yeah. Okay, that's pretty cool. Anyway, got a couple more games to get through yet. First up, Coup. Have we all played Coup before? Obviously, me and Darryl did the other day. Have you played it before, Ian?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah, so the idea of Coup is basically everyone is playing as kind of like I suppose like a member of government, and you're all kind of vying for power, and you're represented by having two representatives placed in front of you. And the
Yes, I
idea
have
is,
played Coup.
yeah, the idea is each card that you've got has a special power to it. So you have 2 powers at the beginning of the game, and everyone starts off with 2 coins. And the idea is everyone's going to start taking coins or doing specific actions in one way or another. And the idea is to be the last person standing. So you're trying to knock out everyone else's set of 2 cards around the table. And there are various roles that your cards are going to have in order to let you do that. Some will let you take more money. Some will let you actually take money from other players. Some of them will allow you just to eliminate another player, but generally the goal is to eventually get to 7 coins, which allows you to automatically knock out another player, and there's nothing they can do about it, because there's a number of bluffs you can actually pull with a number of other cards as well. But the thing it really comes down to is the fact that you can lie about your cards that you've got in front of you because they're face down. Something that we were playing wrong before is anyone could call out anyone else when they make a claim about it. So if I said, I'm going to steal 2 coins off Darryl, and Darryl didn't want to block me, and I would have to state as well, I'm going to steal 2 coins from Darryl with my captain. And
I don't believe you're the captain, Steve.
No, I'm just going to say right now, for the purposes of this, you believe me, and you're not going to
Oh,
stop me
okay.
from taking the 2 coins. Ian could then say, I don't believe you. And if I can't prove I've got the captain by flipping over my card and showing exactly what I've got, then I would have to lose one of my cards and put it into the centre of the table. If it turns out I did have the captain, Ian, though, would lose his card. So chances are, even if Ian believes that I don't have the captain, there's very little reason as to why he would think, I'm actually just gonna, I'm gonna stop this from happening because it puts him at
Unless
risk
he was
rather
the
than Darryl.
captain.
Yeah, unless like say, because there are only 3 of every character in the deck of cards, so if Ian knew he had 2 captains in front of him, for example, he might actually think to himself, there's very little chance that he's actually got the captain as well, so I'm going to call him out on it because he knows that it will eliminate one of my cards. So there is reason for people to do it, but it's vastly reduced. You're putting yourself at risk for someone else if you're doing that, so people rarely tend to actually do it. But although I think everyone is always tempted to call out someone when they call out Duke, because the Duke just takes 3 coins from the centre, which is pretty much putting you halfway to being able to coup someone. So everyone gets that whole temptation of saying, yeah, I don't believe you got the Duke. But yeah, I love this game. What do you guys make of
Again,
Coup?
don't play with Sean.
No, I love playing Sean. I think it's great.
I'm sure. Well, I think I've played like twice, and I was the assassin, or I had the assassin,
Yeah.
like both times. And oh man, it was a long time ago, but it was fun.
Yeah. I mean, the reason why you say don't play with Sean is because he'll constantly make claims around the table. Like I say, okay, so you've got the captain when you haven't even stolen from someone or something like that.
Yeah.
And he'll make that claim. And I've got to admit, it feels really good when he makes a claim about your card and he's wrong, because he is right quite a lot. But one of the games we played, he said, well, I know Steve's got the Contessa, and I was thinking, nah, I've got the Assassin, mate. You're gone in the next turn. And, of course, so he called out my Assassin when I said, yeah, I'm assassinating you. And sure enough, I had it. So it does backfire on him from time to time. Like, you definitely feel like there are times when he probably shouldn't be calling out what everyone has, because it will backfire on him. But, but yeah,
It's good fun.
yeah, I think it's one of those games as well where everyone's going to have that moment at some point where there's, say, 2 captains that are already discarded in the centre of the table, and someone will say, I'm the captain and I'm going to steal 2 coins from you, and you're holding one of the captains and you've got them absolutely dead to rights. That's always fun when stuff like that happens. I think it just... it's one of those games where when a player has the information and someone's trying to use it against them, it can make you feel really good at times. Like, yeah, I've caught you out, kind of thing. It's always fun to have that kind of feeling and stuff. This game gives you that opportunity to have that kind of thing. It's something I really enjoy. Final thoughts before we move on, because Coup is a very small game and there's not much more to talk about here.
I think the only thing I really enjoyed was the highlight of where Sean at the start of the round claimed that he had the Duke and the Ambassador, and it just so happened that I had that exact hand, and it kind of really got me going. He can't have... Could he have both the exact same cards as me? And in another round, something happened, and then Steve and me both had captains, and I was like, well, as another captain to a captain, I'm calling you out on it. And then you turned out having a captain. It was just like, for God's sake. And I think I had the Duke like twice, which was really annoying. But
again, like in a night of you falling into traps, you fell into the whole trap whilst we were playing Coup of pretty much everyone knew that you had a Duke around the table, and you had to discard a card, and you chose to keep your Duke and get rid of your other card, and that's kind of like, yep, piggy bank.
Classic Darryl.
I was the piggy
Classic
bank for
Darryl
quite
play.
a while.
Yeah, it's the classic newbie mistake of, I like this Duke, I'm going to keep this one, and then realising you have no defence then against any kind of thief. So, yeah.
So funny.
Anyway, moving on. Last game we've got to talk about is Adrenaline, which, man,
boom!
I really enjoyed this.
Yeah, this was something else.
So
It was good.
It's really simple as well. It looks more daunting than it actually is when you set this up, because it's essentially a first-person shooter, like an arena-style first-person shooter, like Unreal Tournament or something like that.
Yeah, it's like Unreal.
So the idea is you have to manage your your ammo that you've got throughout the game, but you also have to kind of manage how much damage you're putting into one another, because kills aren't necessarily the most important thing in this. The idea is you're going to run around, you're going to grab stuff, and you're going to shoot people. They are basically your three actions that you've got in this game. You can pick up little power-ups, which might be things like a teleporter that can just warp you to another part of the map, or can move another person a number of spaces towards someone else or something if you want to try and tempt someone else into shooting someone. And you also have series of weapons like spaced around the various spawn points on the map. And you can only carry up to 3 weapons at a time, and every weapon is unique in this. So you can get some really interesting combinations of weapons. Sometimes you might get like a tractor beam that pulls another. It does like a minimal amount of damage, but pulls another player towards you. And then your second weapon might be some sort of melee weapon. So all of a sudden you've got this combo of being able to drag someone to you and then smash them with a melee weapon or something like that. The thing that's quite interesting about this game, though, is that the person that scores the most points every time someone dies is the person that put the most damage in them, not the person who gets the kill shot on them. Also, there's a little bonus for the person that first put damage into that player as well. So yeah, you start thinking about more spreading your damage across to various different players, because also there's diminishing returns on killing the same player over and over and over. So when someone dies the first time, the player that put the most damage into them gets 8 points, the person who put the second most gets 6 points, and so on and so on and so on down there. But once they die, that 8 space is filled in on their character sheet. So the next time it happens, the person that put the most damage in them gets 6 points, until eventually you're down to a point where everyone's just getting 1 point for killing the same person over and over and over. So you kind of can't... You can, to troll someone, you can kill the same person over and over and over again, but it won't win you the game. But yeah, it's interesting in that regard. It's almost you want to think tactically about trying to put more damage in everyone than anyone else before they die, basically, and then let someone else finish them off. That was sort of the tactic that I adopted anyway in it. And it got to a point towards the end of the game where Sean used that against me, and he basically left me and Darryl on one space of the map and then ran away. So basically neither of us could really get to him, because I think it got to the point where there was only 1 kill left, because there's kind of like a tracker at the top that shows how many kills are in the game, basically, and every time someone dies, that token's taken off and placed on their character sheet over the top score that someone's going to get. So basically the last move of the game, though, was I had a weapon that allowed me to move Darryl about quite a bit. So I was able to use my weapon, put damage on Darryl, push him one direction. Then I had an item that allowed me to move a player in one direction as well. So I also used that to basically push him close to Sean, so that it kind of like enticed him to then take a shot on Sean, basically, and that pretty much won me the game. It wasn't about putting damage on Darryl, it was about putting Darryl close to Sean, so I could get my points, basically. That was essentially the thinking towards the end of the game. And it's little tactical things like that, like you can push people around the board and start manipulating how people are going to attack one another, and that's really cool about this game. What did you make of this, Darryl?
I loved it. I thought it was great. I think the concept of like the picking, before we sort of started it, we had a little flick through the weapons list, and it does read like Doom or like Halo or something like that. Just every single weapon's kind of like got its unique kind of ability to it. The only thing I would say that some weapons work better in groups.
Yes.
I feel like a lot of them, many of them were designed for sort of like close combat. Some of them designed for, it's like the swords, the hammers, the shotguns, one space or same space as the character that you were next to. So they work fine. I love the reload aspect. I love the fact you got a cost for that. I think that's great. It was some of the options for, like, say, the alternative version of that weapon, if you will. So it was only beneficial if it was maybe 3 or more characters in the similar spaces, like your lightning gun where it chained off people. There was a void which like sucked people in. Again, it worked better with groups. A lot of the weapons would do more damage to sort of people staggered around. So there was that aspect. But I wouldn't really say that was a bad thing in a way. They all had a weapon option that allowed them to be used against each other. I think the respawn element's very cool. Like, I love the fact that you die and then you sort of randomize where you're respawning. Sometimes
like
it doesn't really work in your favor.
It's like semi-random. So the idea is
Yeah.
what happens is you pick up one of the power cards when you die, and either you discard that card and the color that's on the background of that card is the spawn point that you appear in, or if you have more power cards in your hand, because again you can carry a maximum of 3 of them, you take it into your hand and you can choose which color you actually spawn at then. So you can kind of mitigate the randomness a bit if you're hoarding power cards. Anyway, sorry, carry on.
Yeah, I just liked it. I think it's a great game. I'd love to play it with Ian. I'd like to play it with as many people as possible on the bigger maps. The figures are really cool. They're just like generic kind of random looking figures, but I had like a lizard with a gun and on his arm and stuff. It was just kind of cool. I think I think it was good fun.
It would be interesting to play it in the other mode, because we played it with the settings for first time play. When you play it, so it was sudden death. So as soon as the final kill happened, the game was over. They kind of have an overtime mode in a normal game where for the last round, everyone flips you've got a little side bit that shows you the 3 actions you can take in your turn. And you flip that over and the powers, suddenly the 3 actions you can take on your turn change a bit and they become a bit crazier. Like, you can dash around more, like it becomes a bit more frantic towards the end, which is kind of cool. Kind of a last gasp, kind of everyone scrambling for points at the end of it. Something else that's worth mentioning as well is the fact that your characters, the more damage they actually get a couple of extra powers that make them a little bit better. So, like, for example, normally you can move 1 space and grab an item. That gets upgraded once you've taken a little bit of damage to you can move 2 spaces and then grab an item. Or even better, usually on your turn you can shoot, and that's it. You don't get to move beforehand unless you take a move action first, because you get 2 actions per turn. But that upgrades when you're fairly close to death to you can move and shoot, which is incredibly powerful in the game, and just a nice way of giving people that are taking a bit of a beating a little bit extra to be able to help them out. But like, some of the weapon combinations are great, because I had a sledgehammer that could I had to be on the same space as someone, but a sledgehammer that dealt heavy damage, but it also knocked a player back 3 spaces if I decided to spend the extra ammo to use the extra ability of it, which was causing a mass knockback. I also had, like Darryl mentioned, I had a lightning gun where I would shoot it and it would hit the first player for a certain amount of damage, and then if I decided to pay extra, someone in Darryl's line of sight then would get hit for 1 damage, and if we had a 4th player in the game, I could have paid another amount of ammo and had it ricochet off that guy to another person in their line of sight and damage them as well, so it could have a massive chain effect across the map. But then I also had a railgun, which just allowed me just to fire through walls, which again was incredibly powerful, but cost a hell of a lot of ammo to reload.
Yeah.
But
so it's worth mentioning.
No rivet gun.
there might be in it.
That's the
Possibly
ultimate weapon.
was.
We all know that rivet guns are the ultimate weapon.
I mean,
So
this game's
what
got
turned
replay
out to
value, because we haven't seen
yeah.
all the weapons yet, so...
No. I think what turned out to be one of the ultimate weapons was the homing missile where you didn't even have to look.
Oh, God.
Where,
Yeah.
right, so basically a certain someone picks up a homing missile, had all of the ammo needed required to reload it every turn. And basically it didn't matter where... Didn't he teleport one of us out into,
because
out of line of sight?
The actual rules of it is it has to be someone that he cannot see. So if he can see someone, he couldn't use it on them. But out of sight, he could.
I think he either teleported me or Steve, one of the two, I can't remember. Teleported us and then immediately whammed us with the quite a powerful homing missile, to be fair.
Yeah.
Very funny.
What weapons did you have, Darryl? Because Sean had the home missiles, he had a sword as well.
And yeah, he had the
did he have
shotgun, the
something else?
sword.
Oh, the shotgun, yeah.
I had a flamethrower. I had the flamethrower because I was like, oh boy, I can hit people from multiple attacks from all over the place. That was good.
You could hit two people in the same room, basically, couldn't you?
Yeah, I basically just run in a room, flood it with flames, and then run out. I can't remember what the second weapon was. It was just like a laser cannon thing. I can't remember it, but it had did it have like a scatter shot ability, so I could scatter across and hit two people at once. Again, if I paid more for it, I think.
It might have, yeah. That might be what you had, possibly.
But they weren't. Ironically, they weren't that heavy damage dealing weapons. I never bothered picking up a third, which was annoying.
Yeah, like I definitely tried to do it because you've got 3 different types of ammo in the game. You've got red, blue, and yellow, and every card states which ammo it actually takes to use. It's usually a combination of colours. So I tried to fix it very early on that I at least had a weapon for everything, which would be useful. It's worth noting as well that you can only fire each weapon once per round as well, because as soon as you fired it, it becomes unloaded, and you're only allowed to reload weapons at the end of your turn if you have the ammo. So, like, Sean couldn't fire off his homing missile twice in one turn, for example. He had to wait, had to reload it, and he could only reload it as well if he actually had the available ammo as well. So you had to, you had to monitor that quite closely. Like with Sean, I think he'd always managed to work out exactly how to get the ammo so he could fire his homing missile and then reload it again straight away. Whereas with my railgun, I kind of was using it sparingly because I was figuring I can use my other weapons to do other things at the same time. So I was finding I had a lot of flexibility with what I did. I wasn't just focusing on just using my railgun, but my railgun was kind of like if I was in a situation where no one was near me, I could just pick up some ammo and launch someone on, like, shoot someone on the other side of the map or something through walls, which was kind of neat. I feel like you were the only person that didn't have, like, a weapon with a crazy ability where you could shoot outside of your sight line and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that was the one thing. I kind of, like I said, I didn't get the third weapon, but nothing really. Like the only one I really liked the look of, but again, I feel like it was the one that needed more people. Was that one where it creates a void?
Yeah.
You know, like, and you can either push someone into it, or you can create a void underneath them and then hit them into it.
Yeah.
So that was the only one I kind of like the look of. But again, when anything had like multiple for like hitting 3 or 4 people, I just didn't really see the point of it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
I'd like I said, love to play that game again.
Yeah. I mean, I really enjoyed this, so I do want to play it again.
Yeah.
I think
100%.
I think we've definitely got to get it to the table again sometime soon. But anyway, that is Adrenaline. Comes with a big recommend from me, so good stuff.
Boom.
And with that, we're done with another episode of the Everybody Dice podcast. So thank you very much for joining us for this episode. If you would like to follow us on social medias, you can find us at Everybody Dice on Twitter and Everybody Dice Show on Instagram. We have a Facebook page, which is just down there, facebook.com/Everybody Dice for people that are listening to this on the podcast. And please, if there's stuff on screen right now, give them a click as well. Give us a like, share, and subscribe on whatever platform you're listening to this on. Thank you very much for joining us, and we shall see you again real soon. Till then, bye.
Bye. Peace out. Goodbye.
Bye.